This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you for joining the City of Kingston's Common Council at our Housing Special Committee meeting. Today is Tuesday, April 21st. My name is Andrea Schott, the Council President and organizer for our virtual meetings. Before we begin our meeting, we would like to go over a few meeting guidelines to help us navigate the system as efficiently and respectfully as possible. We ask that members of the public and press remain muted and off camera for the length of the meeting. As organizer, I reserve the right to mute anyone who unmutes themselves. Council members and city staff will control their own mute button. Good practice would be to mute yourself if you are not speaking to avoid background noise and feedback. If a council member or staff wishes to speak, they will raise their hands. The chairperson will call on them before they speak or by stating their name clearly for our audio listeners. All of our meetings are recorded. Both video and written transcriptions will be made available to the public on the city's website at a later date. Although we will not have public speaking tonight, you could submit written comments to the City of Kingston Clerk, Elisa Tinty, at emtinty@kingston-ny.gov, or by dropping them off at the drop box located outside the side door of City Hall. We also encourage you to reach out to committee chairs or your ward's representative at any time. If you have any audio issues, send a text message to the following number, 845-594-6120. I'll repeat this number again, but be aware that phone calls will not be answered during the meeting. The number to text is 845-594-6120. As the organizer for today's meeting, I reserve the right to lock and pause the meeting to eject anyone who has behaved inappropriately. Lastly, at tonight's meeting, we have in attendance Chair Alderman Rennie Scott-Childress, special committee members Alderman Don Tollerman, Alderwoman Rochelle Hirsch, a non-special committee member, council member Alderman Jeffrey Ventura Morel, city staff, Corp Counsel Dan Bardenstein. Thank you for your patience during these difficult times, and on behalf of the Common Council, I wish you and your family good health. And I now turn the floor over to Chairman Scott-Childress.
Thank you very much, President Schott. We understand in these extraordinary times, this is an unusual way for us to communicate. It's nowhere near as supple and engaging as if we were all present in the same place. We understand too that you have to be present because of the requirements of the GoToMeetings platform. So we appreciate you being here, even though technically you don't need to be. So with that said, tonight we're going to be talking about various things, and we put out an agenda. I don't know if anyone has been able to look at it very closely. There are several items on it, and we can, of course, go in different directions if we feel the need. I would like to try to keep tonight's meeting to an hour or so, so that we can feel like we're really making progress. There's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot to research, and I think that's where we really need to go tonight, is figuring out what kind of research, what kind of understandings we need to have, and also what sort of timelines we need to have. So I welcome everyone here. The first thing on the agenda that I sent out was the schedule for future meetings. I don't know what other folks feel. If other folks are okay, I think we might want to put that to the end of the meeting, unless there's other ideas. Yes, Michelle.
The city agenda has my housing legislation on the agenda for first.
Yes.
And Rebecca Gerard from Community Citizen Action is trying to get into the meeting. Andrea hasn't approved her.
Andrea, you're on mute.
I don't have to approve of people to come into the meeting if she has the access code.
She can speak, right? But she just wouldn't be visible. Is that right, Andrea?
Yeah, I don't have to. There isn't. It's not a system where I have to give approval of anybody coming in.
So when
She's sending me a text message saying that she's waiting for Andrea Shout to approve her to sign in.
I don't,
Should I have her try again? I'll have her try again.
because I don't have anything that says give her permission to come in, so I haven't seen
Okay,
anything.
I'm gonna just tell her to try to come in again.
All right, so while we're waiting for that, I could go over the second item on the agenda, and that is the idea to discuss of forming something we might call the Kingston Housing Advisory Council. My idea here is that there are actually a fair number of people in Kingston who are specialists who work in different kinds of entities, public and private, that deal with housing issues. I know I've got at least 2 folks, if not 3, in my ward, and there are a lot of folks present at RUPCO and other entities here in town. So I was thinking what we might want to do would be to develop something like a round table where we get these folks together once a month, whatever periodicity we think works best, whatever they can make, and we use their expertise both in terms of thinking about what data we have to try to figure out the problems that we have, but also, more importantly, what kind of solutions are available. I know that there's lots of possibilities, and so instead of us trying to all become experts on every aspect of the housing industry, I think it might be important for us or beneficial for us to take advantage of the presence of all these good folks. So that's a fairly vague explanation. Any other ideas, responses, considerations on that regard? Yes, Michelle.
It's just a question. Is this advisory council to enact like emergency legislation around the current COVID crisis or other issues moving forward?
Well, they can't enact anything. They would just be folks in the community who would give us information. We could, one of us or all of us could meet with them. The idea is to take advantage of their knowledge and the possibility too that when you get some folks in the room, sometimes I think the word is synergies happen, and they may be able to come up with some good ideas that we could then turn into legislation. That would be the idea. And so I see it as both. Because there's a lot of issues in terms of trying to deal with the emergency. We, of course, can't make that happen in the next week. I'm sure we could get some folks in the room in the next week or 2, but I envision something that would be forward-looking as well. Does that answer your question?
Well, I do have someone that wants to be in the room virtually tonight that is trying to get in and cannot get in, who is helping pass this legislation that I've introduced across the whole state. So we are in the middle of an emergency, so I'm hoping that we can act as quickly as possible. So
Michelle,
I don't know what's
have
going
her
on.
call my number right now because I'm not getting anything from her trying to show up into the meeting. So maybe.
Okay, can you just please tell me the number again? Just your personal phone number?
I'll text you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So on the issue then of the idea of an advisory council, yes, Don.
So I love the idea of having people share their expertise. I think we do have a wealth of people in our community. I'd like to see it more ad hoc rather than trying to select 3 or 4 people and have a regular advisory committee. I think we can draw on different expertise, and I don't know how we do that. I'm just saying I don't want to be, stuck with 3 people and to the exclusion of others that may bring other perspectives.
Well, the idea wouldn't be to have just 3 people. I would think it would be a larger group than that. But certainly, it would always be to some degree ad hoc because some people come in, come out. And the idea would be to have a wide range of people there, not to have a group of people who simply parrot back to us what we might want to hear. Right. Because I think we need to be as open as possible to all the different stakeholders in town who are involved in providing housing and using housing.
I think that's good. And I would want to just beware of advocacy, you know, whereas we want more objective information and perspective rather, but not advocating a certain, you know, law or bill. You know,
Yes.
I don't want to be like, you know, someone trying to lobby to get something, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to deal
Yeah.
with lobbying, more just with hard facts and perspectives.
Right. And so I think that's why you would definitely want to balance on the committee. And I mean, there's a lot of models for this. A lot of different municipalities have done this sort of thing where you have different folks from different points of view involved. And, you know, as long as we set the foundation for it and make it clear that it's not about advocacy, that we're about trying to find, get data, that's one thing. But also develop specific solutions, I think that we could handle that.
And who would make the choices of who to invite? I mean, I know a couple people, but we should have one central arbiter.
Yeah, I think all three of us would sit down and we would talk about the different folks to get involved. And of course, these would always be open meetings. Anybody could come. It would not be, you know, a backroom deal sort of thing. And that's the idea is how do we start with a group of folks who are, for lack of a better word, experts on these issues, either because of study or because of experience, and make sure that we get all the kinds of perspectives that we need to make good decisions.
All right, so if Michelle's in agreement, you know, maybe for next call's agenda, we each come with a list of people who we think would fit the bill.
Okay, I like that idea then. Okay, so there's our first bit of homework. Okay. Now the next thing that I have, well, I see that Rebecca Gerard has arrived. So if everyone is okay, I'm ready to give her 5 minutes to speak to the issue that she wants to address. So Rebecca, are you hearing us?
I am hearing you. Thank you so much.
Oh, good. Okay. I see you're unmuted now. So if you would, I don't know, Michelle, do you need to introduce what Rebecca's going to talk about, or is she?
Yeah, so this, so I would like to, yes, because I don't want to assume anyone tuning in right now knows exactly what we're speaking of, right? So we're speaking about the resolution that I submitted to the Common Council calling for an issuance of an extended moratorium on evictions 1 month past the executive order by Governor Cuomo. The executive order for the moratorium for evictions ends on June 20th. And then and then further rent relief during the state of emergency. This legislation is being rolled out throughout various municipalities in the state. And Rebecca Gerard is helping multiple municipalities do this. It's come out of Local Progress New York, which is a group of elected officials throughout the state of New York advancing this legislation, various forms of this legislation. And there was actually a press release today for New York City is also looking to do this. So I will let Rebecca move forward now. Thank you.
All right. So Rebecca, give us 5 minutes of what's going on.
All right, well, thank you all very much for allowing me to speak this evening and for entertaining what I think is a vitally important housing resolution that can provide protections to the residents of Kingston in this moment of crisis. We know that we had a housing crisis across the state and certainly in Kingston prior to the COVID pandemic, and that has only been exacerbated by our current situation. And so while we appreciated the immediate relief that was offered by the eviction moratorium that was issued, we know that that ends on June 20th. And if we don't have statewide or local actions that provide further protections to communities. We are heading towards and this really can't be understated, a housing humanitarian crisis in that will look like countless individuals being evicted. We know that 100% of non-essential workers are ordered stay at home. We have people who are out of work. We know that nationally 30% of renters were unable to pay rent on April 1st. We anticipate with a great deal of certainty that on May 1st, that number will only have increased. And so while we fight for relief from the state, it's vitally important that we provide safeguards at the municipal levels for tenants who are going to be impacted by their inability to pay rent. So one of the things, let me pause, I should have started with this. I'll introduce my title and sort of what my work is. So my title is Campaigns Manager for Housing Justice with Citizen Action of New York. We sit on the steering committee of the Housing Justice for All Coalition. And so part of what I do is work with municipalities around the state on how they can implement additional protections and utilize their municipal power in a way that affects real change for their residents. And so one of the ways I've done that is to help municipalities move resolutions which further that cause. And so the municipality that the resolution that Kingston is entertaining does what Michelle said. It extends the eviction moratorium by 30 days past the one that is statewide. And in addition, which is vitally important, it prohibits the filings of non-payment evictions for a period of 180 calendar days. And so this will allow tenants to not fear an imminent eviction as the result of their financial crisis they're in. And I just want to reinforce that this is something that's happening statewide. These resolutions are happening statewide. And so I work really closely with attorneys who are experts in housing law and who are really well versed on what authority municipalities have and don't have in terms of moving things. And so prior to the statewide eviction moratorium, there were numerous municipalities that were moving local eviction moratoriums in anticipation of the crisis before the state acted. And there was in fact an article, a statewide article on how on the number of municipalities that were doing that. And then post-COVID, in terms of extending this, we have, as Michelle said, most recently, Corey Johnson, the Speaker of New York City, is introducing a resolution which actually goes even further than what Kingston is proposing. And it stays evictions and non-payment, any monetary judgments related to non-payment of rent. So it would prohibit garnishing of wages and things such as that for until April of 2021. So for a period longer than 180 calendar days. And I think that is my full 5 minutes. So I want to be respectful of time. So I can pause there, but I will stay on in case there are any questions that people would like me to answer.
Yes, this is Rennie Scott Childress again. I just want to let everyone who's listening know we did try to find another person or two to speak to this issue who might bring a different perspective, but in the small amount of time that we've had because of this being emergency, we haven't found someone yet. But we do want to explore this from as many angles as necessary. So that said, I see Don Tollerman has a question for you. Rebecca?
What's that? Hi, Rebecca. Thank you for speaking. What other cities have enacted similar legislation in the state?
Yeah, so prior to the COVID emergency and well, prior to the statewide eviction moratorium, Syracuse and Albany were moving resolutions to provide an eviction moratorium. And so they had already been introduced and were on pace to be voted on and passed, and had the stamp of approval from their respective councils when the state intervened. So post statewide moratorium, right now we have New York City that has acted. And in terms of other municipalities that are considering them, we have Albany, we have Hudson, we have Kingston, obviously, we have Rochester is considering it.
So none have passed anything yet.
Well, this is, everybody's sort of moving in tandem. So nobody has, I can say this, nobody has pulled it because of, based on the rationale that there is not the authority to do it. So that I can tell you there's not a municipality, both pre statewide eviction moratorium and post statewide eviction moratorium that have pulled the resolutions based on the argument that there is not the authority to move on this. And no resolutions have failed or been voted down. So it's just, this is an evolving issue and everybody's sort of moving in tandem. So that's the best answer I can give you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question.
Anything else, Don?
I have for discussion, but not for Rebecca specifically, no.
Okay, then I have a question to Michelle. Do you have any questions?
No, I just, like as Rebecca was saying, it's constantly evolving. It's all new. We're all just at the start and the genesis of this in the state level. There's actually even some state legislation that's looking similar as well. So it's a lot of gears are moving. So I think that it's good that we're having this discussion and opening it up. Obviously, we know that it needs some work, and we'll bring in other people as you've suggested, Rennie.
Okay, Jeffrey Morrell has a question.
Hi, I have a question for Rebecca. You mentioned, nice to see you. You mentioned that there's question about the legality of this. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah. So nice to see you too. I'm sorry, I was muted when I said that. So what I was saying is that there's actually not been any questions around the legality of that. I wanted to really make that sort of front and center of this argument. So the two things that I think I want to highlight are that we've had no pushback from municipalities on whether municipalities have the authority to enact these, number one. And number two, they have not been voted down in any municipality. So what's happening now is they're moving through different municipalities, is that actually municipalities are wanting to build in greater protections as they move through. So possibly covering mortgage holders or extending the 180-day calendar period, or I would imagine that I'm going to get requests to do some edits based on Speaker Johnson's introduction of his resolution, which is literally just came out today, his press release around it. And so, which also bars the garnishing of wages or any monetary judgments in relation to non-payment of rents. So those are really the processes that are taking place, but I wanted to highlight that no one has had problems with the authority issue, right, or the legality issue, and no one has voted it down.
Thank you.
All right, Rebecca, so you say that no one has voted it down, but then that also means that there has not been any legal testing of municipalities taking on this kind of legislation, right?
So I believe prior to the eviction moratorium, New York City passed a 1 week. Prior to the statewide one, New York City passed a 1 week window of protections that was specific to New York City. I couldn't quite tell you if it was the city council that passed it, so I don't want to go on the record as saying it was the council itself that passed it. But we do have instances of municipalities taking action. And again, I really want to highlight this. I work with people who do nothing but housing law as their career. So they're attorneys whose entire careers are based on housing law. And they seem really clear that, and trust me when I say there are some things that I want to do that I get told, no, that actually falls outside of the scope of what a municipality has the authority to do. Like, for instance, I would love to write a resolution to have a municipality authorize the canceling of rent, which would say that a municipality could restrict the ability of landlords to collect rent over the period of the state of emergency. But I've gotten the advice from these same attorneys that would be not defensible in a challenge in a lawsuit. And so I don't write those resolutions, right? I am moving based on the recommendations of these attorneys on what municipalities have the authority to implement and what they don't.
Good. Okay. So so they have not been legally tested. I hear you saying that there are some lawyers that you feel are experts who believe that at least this moratorium would pass legal muster. There's the question, though, of the actual legal test, because whoever has to face that legal test is going to have to pay a fair amount of money, or at least go through a lot of wrangling in an issue like this. Another question that I have is, in this kind of moratorium, there's clearly the potential for some potentially heavy losses to landlords. Do any of these other laws that you've looked at, any of the other proposals you've looked at, have means for offsetting the losses to housing providers?
So this resolution was written really deliberately to try to consider the needs of property owners and tenants in this moment. And then I do want to go back to your first point. So this does not erase the debt of a tenant for the property owner. It simply says that if there's an amount in arrears that was accrued during the period of moratorium, that for a period of 180 days post-moratorium, a non-payment eviction cannot be initiated based on that amount of arrears. And in fact, the resolution specifies that is qualified by if the tenant maintains current on their rent payments post-moratorium. So I think that was really done with consideration of the fact that we know that some property owners would not be able to go 9 months without receiving income and stay afloat. While there are many players in Kingston who are corporate developers and would absolutely be able to sustain their business model with that type of loss, we know that there are some small property owners who would be utterly devastated by that, right? And so this resolution, I think, was intentionally written to provide that sort of protection, that rent payments post-moratorium have to stay current in order to be able to benefit from that protection of being protected from a non-payment eviction for a period of 180 days. And it doesn't erase that debt, right? It just extends the period for them to catch up on that. But again, I'll flag that if there's something that the Kingston Council would like to add, such as a prohibition of foreclosure proceedings for a period of 180 days, embedded in with the non-eviction proceedings, I have language already prepared in certain resolutions that include that in a resolution. And that really is targeted at protecting our small property owners who are landlords, sort of in tandem with protecting the tenants.
Yeah, anything we do, we've got to look out, because there's a fair number of those smaller landlords here in town.
Yeah, so that could be added. And just to go back to your first point, if there's any city where real estate would sue about a moratorium such as the one you're suggesting, it would be New York City. We have in New York City probably the biggest real estate industry power hold, arguably of any in the country. And so if the city of New York feels that they are passing a resolution that is legally defensible, knowing that the resources that real estate can bring to the table against them are limitless, literally limitless. And their resolution goes far further than what Kingston's is proposing. Even though there hasn't been a challenge to this, these are kind of uncharted territory. This is uncharted waters, right? These are uncharted waters. And we haven't had a pandemic, and we haven't had to deal with this sort of level of triage before. But if there's any ability to not be able to look at a legal precedent, but sort of look at another city as big as New York, who is going up against an industry with resources such as real estate has in the city of New York, and they feel comfortable moving forward to pass a resolution that actually goes beyond what Kingston's doing, you know, I think I would argue that that's probably as good as having as close as to having a precedent on the books as we're going.
So I have a question. Do you have any idea how many eviction cases are currently before the local housing court here in Kingston?
So filings. So according to the statewide eviction moratorium, filings were prohibited as well as eviction executions.
Then I'm asking you how many originally were there before the COVID crisis. In other words, they had to you know, stop these cases because they closed the courts. So in other words, there are open evictions cases right now.
That's correct. Yeah. So I don't know how many open evictions cases Kingston has, but I would assert that while that number is reflective of the housing crisis that Kingston had pre-COVID, which was, I think we all know, right? Significant and something you were all taking very seriously. The reality is that post-COVID, the housing crisis that we viewed as an enormous one, the scale of that is exponential at this point. And so the number of pending evictions pre-COVID is, I'm not sure what information that gives us, because the reality is that, so originally filings were set to begin again on April 19th. That's now been moved by the courts to May 15th. So eviction executions are still stayed until June 20th, but filings are now, have been postponed through May 15th. The number of eviction filings for non-payment that we expect to see in Kingston and across the state, because literally a third of renters were not able to pay their rent, a third on April 1st. And that number will do nothing but increase on May 1st and do nothing but increase on June 1st. I don't know that number, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it's indicative of the crisis that we experienced in Kingston pre-pandemic. And we must consider the crisis we're in post-pandemic. And so we won't have those numbers until.
Sure, but the issue there has to do with whether this is moot, because if there's a huge number of cases that the housing courts have to deal with once they reopen, a month might not make any difference. They may be busy dealing with old cases, and so any new filings and that sort of thing would automatically be put off into the future. So Michelle has a question. Michelle, remember, announce who you are when you start to speak.
Michelle Hirsch. I just wanted to speak to your question about how many filings there are prior to the moratorium, I think everything becomes a moot point. So if somebody had, if there was an eviction pending and someone was in a 14-day process already when the moratorium went into effect, that person could technically have become sick with COVID, right? And be sick with COVID, lose their job, and actually have grounds for, again, not being evicted. So there's a lot of things that have changed since COVID started. So I just don't think
Sure.
it's relative. That number of how many people were going to be evicted prior to COVID just really isn't, I just don't even see it as a valid argument against not passing legislation.
Well, the question had to do with the how crowded the court was going to be and whether we'd actually even be able to get to any new cases. That's my question to Rebecca. So I had another question for Rebecca, which was county. It's the county that has the main officer who's in charge of evictions here in Ulster, right?
So the county is in charge of, so my understanding is that the county is in charge of the eviction executions through their control of the sheriff's office.
Yes, okay, so that'd be something for us to check into. That's a question of jurisdiction. That's something to look into.
Which is why preventing the filings in Kingston is important.
Okay.
And just to go back, and just to go back to your other point, I don't think you had, I mean, I don't know the number, but the idea that there's not a need to pass a prohibition on filings because the courts will be so clogged by filings that it will sort of buy people time anyway is sort of inherently built on the idea that so many people will be being evicted that it'll take longer for other people to be evicted. And so I'm not sure if I'm not understanding that question.
All right. The last question that I have is you mentioned an article before, and I was wondering if you could just forward that to us, the one that was talking about different municipalities that have instituted this sort of challenge. So
I'd
if
be
you could
happy
forward
to.
that to us.
What would be the best email for it to be distributed?
Well, Michelle, are you okay with being the connection for that?
Yes, of course. I'll forward it to the committee, the full council, laws and rules, everyone. Thank you.
Great. Any other documentation like that so that we can have a full record to look at when we take up the issue? I'd appreciate it. Anything else anybody wants to ask Rebecca? Nope. All right, Rebecca, we appreciate your time. We look forward to looking into the issue further, and I'm sure we'll have more questions and more discussion.
I appreciate all of you. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Rebecca.
Rebecca.
Take care. All right, so this is Rennie Scott Childress again. Second thing on the agenda here was the inventory, what I'm calling loosely inventory of formal and informal resources for housing. So one of the things that I was envisioning was us trying to, in a sense, speak with some of the folks, maybe even at our next meeting, who provide low-income housing and affordable housing of different types. Either try to get a report from them or have them come speak to us in person. So people like Kevin O'Connor at RUPCO, Benjamin O'Shea, who's the executive director of the Kingston Housing Authority. There's some other entities such as the management of, is it K&R, who run Yasmin Towers and the Governor Clinton. I was thinking it'd be good to get these folks in as early as possible so that we could get a sense of how they go about creating housing, how they think these issues through, but also seeing if they have some ideas of how to expand quickly what housing we have. We also should probably get a sense of where all the properties are that the city owns that we're in the process of conveying or have conveyed, I'm not sure exactly where it is, to the land bank. I don't know what the possibilities are there, whether if folks are homeless, we could temporarily give them shelter in some of these buildings. But that's one thing that I was hoping that we could either talk about or look at doing in some way, shape, or form. Michelle.
Yes, regarding back to people to invite, there's also the Ulster County Housing Consortium that's been in existence for, I think, at least 15 years, and there's a lot of experts that have looked at housing and affordable housing and housing issues in the county and Kingston, that we should look at their membership and see as well. As, thank you.
Okay, good. Don Tollerman.
Hi, this is Don Tollerman. So I'd like to propose that we establish a housing siting committee, or maybe that's just us with some local experts, but sort of immediately identify the maybe 2 or 3 properties best suited for development of housing within the net, to identify sites that could be shovel ready, that could go through the secret process, that could be developed, that could be brought to a developer to say, this is ready for your site plan, and there are properties, there is land in the city that's available that we should look at. So I'm kind of taking what you just suggested, Rennie, and maybe fast forwarding it a little bit and go out and actually let's identify. I have some sites in mind and would like to present them as possible sites for development and what needs to be done to show them to a developer to say this is a great opportunity for you to develop housing, whether it's affordable or mid or, we need housing of all kinds, but we don't have that many sites, and I kind of want to go as fast as possible.
I think that's a great idea. This is Rennie Scott Childress again. I think that's a great idea. And going from that, what we might want to do too is if we can identify those properties quickly, we would perhaps be able to see if we could get the planning board to do a generic impact statement so that we would, in a sense, create a lot of the conditions that normally we would be able to get through a lot of the conditions that sometimes can take a while in the development process. And I think this is the sort of thing we could include the people from the housing authority, the housing consortium that Michelle mentioned, and the other folks that we were talking about. So good, we'll put that in. Anything else then on this idea of an inventory for housing and properties, potential properties for development?
The land bank is an important part of it, but those are really onesies, twosies. And I think we should try to think, of course, get those, the land bank's working on those, but I think we should try to think bigger. And, 20 units and above, 20 to 100 units is what we should focus our energy on.
Rennie Scott Childress here. Yes, I agree with that. But as Michelle has pointed out, we have both an emergency in the short term and we have an emergency in the long term. So I'm wondering too, there may be some possibility if we locate these properties soon enough. I wonder if there's some kind of temporary housing that we might be able to erect, or provision of some trailers, something along these lines. So that folks who do end up without housing, we would have a place where we could put them up on a temporary basis. Again, I don't know, we're just throwing out ideas here. So good. So anything else on that particular point?
Just to what degree should the county play a role in that? Because what is the county, you know, there's can you explain to me what the county has for a housing group, you know, trying to build or make available land for housing for the county? Do you know, does anybody know?
Housing for the county?
I'm just saying, is there any kind of expertise within the county that's focusing on these issues right now?
Yes, there's an ad hoc group of people who are meeting with Evelyn Wright, who is one of the economic directors for the county, and they are looking specifically at housing issues. That's something we definitely want to coordinate with. But as we're looking at this, I think it's really important, as much as possible, for us to consider how what we do now will have long-term effects and potentially long-term benefits. So the idea then, like you're pointing out, of looking at particular properties where we might be able to erect some temporary housing, some kind of temporary domiciles that we would then turn into sites for development down the road. And working with the county, one of the things to think through is, right now, the Department of Social Services, when they think about housing, because it's a county level administration, they think of the entire county. And so we've had stories of people who've been 1 or 2 weeks in Saugerties, 1 or 2 weeks in Plattekill, 1 or 2 weeks in Kingston. And this is extremely disruptive, particularly if somebody has need of particular social services, needs access to health care, has children who are in the schools. This is really difficult. So we may want to be thinking, how is it we work through the emergency so that we come out of this with some permanent solutions to some of the other issues that we're facing.
Right.
Michelle.
I just want to point out that what you're referring to as a county DSS issue, and putting families throughout the county in different localities, say families from Kingston, it's really not a county issue. It's the OTDA office in the state that oversees everything, the Office of Temporary Disability and Assistance. So the county level, the county doesn't even have any say in that. Like, our hands are tied even at the county level. It's a state issue. So I just wanted to clarify that.
It's DSS that decides where people should be housed, like in this hotel or that hotel, right?
Yes, they do, but they have no ability to change that rule and how it's carried out, because it's a state level program. They can't just decide to leave Kingston people in Kingston. Like, they can't change.
Have to go where there's availability, right?
Correct. Only where there's availability.
Right. So if we can work then in tandem with the county to try to create greater availability, so that theoretically folks could be placed closer to the services that they need, that would be helpful. No?
It's very complicated and bureaucratic, but I can, send you all information about that, or even direct you to the right people to speak to about that. It's not as simple. Great. It's funding streams, and they have to be, the buildings have to be earmarked as emergency shelters in order to get that money. So great. It's the state.
Okay. Thanks. Don?
Regarding identifying land, if there was a property, let's say in the town of Ulster, where people who live there, easy commute to Kingston, that's out of our purview, right? I mean, if there was a piece of land in Ulster, we'd have to be working with the town of Ulster board to we shouldn't even look at land in the town of Ulster, right? Because that's.
Are you asking, can the city of Kingston purchase property outside the city of Kingston?
Yeah, it's complicated. Like what you said about getting a site ready, going through the draft environmental impact statement. We only have control of opportunities in our city. There are other opportunities just outside of our borders, but we shouldn't even be considering those. Correct?
Well, I think that's being creative, and it's a question of coordination. You know, I mean, a lot of this is recognizing how we're connected in lots of different ways with the other municipalities, the other entities, the towns that are right around us,
Right.
and maybe that there's ways we can combine resources. And I think anything like that is certainly worth looking into.
Okay.
Okay, so if that's all on that one, oh, Michelle
I
Hirsch.
just have a really quick question. I know that the community grant money came in. Do we know if we're getting any emergency service grant money through HUD, which could then help create rental assistance to prevent homelessness? Have we
I have
received
not
any word
seen
on that?
I have not seen anything. All I've seen is the acceptance letter, which and I've looked at the HUD website for these funds, and it gives some generic ideas about what the funds can be used for. But you know, because it was kind of generic, you could see lots of ways that this could be interpreted, and so I don't know how limiting they're going to be in their final say over what we can use the money for.
Right.
So we're waiting. We're waiting.
Thank you, Ryan.
All right. Then, so the next item on the agenda here is the means for collecting data regarding housing needs in the current emergency and beyond. And I think this is a real problem that we've had. We're talking about this idea of an eviction moratorium, but how many people are we talking about? Are we talking about 15 people? Or are we talking about 500? So I would like for us to brainstorm in upcoming meetings about how to develop data. Now, fortunately, there are two different data collection projects going on that we'll be able to take advantage of in the near future. Professor Kwame Holmes at Bard has a group of students who are looking at who owns rental properties in the city of Kingston and trying to figure out, where the landlords, where the property owners actually live, so we can get a better sense of this kind of relationship. Pattern for Progress is also doing work trying to figure out how many unused housing spaces there are in the city of Kingston. If you look at, there's a kind of general number that comes from the census community data that suggests there's something like 1,000 empty housing units in the city of Kingston that are not being used at the moment. But I've seen other figures that have different, that are lower, some significantly lower in the several hundreds, some a little bit lower. But that's another kind of thing that I think it's important for us to try to figure out, and whether we find an informal way of doing that, trying to get other professors at local colleges to see if they can get students involved in doing surveys, or if this is the sort of thing where we need to spend some money to have some surveys done by Pattern for Progress or some other entity. I would like for us to keep this very much on the front burner so that we can be making better decisions that don't just blanket an entire body of stakeholders and have unintended consequences. Any comments on that?
Well, this will be part of the bringing in
Don
experts.
Tollerman?
This is Don Tollerman. This will be one of our goals, is to bring in other consultants, and they will bring similar data. Well, they may bring some insight and some data that we don't have access to, and ideas for collecting data as well. Some of this is useful and some of it's not. We need to be very careful about what we ask people to do to collect data.
Sure, absolutely. But my sense is having data is better than having no data. So,
Yeah.
Michelle Hirsch.
Yes, this is Michelle Hirsch. There's also data available through the school district, the state McKinney-Vento Act, because they will be, they have to count how many homeless families we even have in the city of Kingston, even if they're placed elsewhere. So we can get very specific information also, which was
That would be
important.
good. So this is, either ourselves or if we find another person, if there's somebody who would be willing to volunteer to do something like this. I'm sure there's a lot of great data out there. The problem is getting it all in one place. So, if I know of a couple of data sets, Michelle knows a couple of different ones, Don knows of a whole different set, that might be good for each of us individually, but it doesn't necessarily help us as a common council make good decisions. So if there's nothing else on that, let's move to the last item here. Well, actually next to last, themes and witnesses for future meetings. So I'm wondering for just a couple of minutes if we could brainstorm a little bit, if there's any other stuff that we want to look into, if there are any particular people or groups we're thinking about involving. And then after that, we'll think about what kind of schedule we want to develop for ourselves as we deal with the current crisis and the future crisis.
Well, that's the same as decide next week, we're going to come with a list of people that we feel would add value. Isn't that the same,
Okay.
same thing?
Okay. Good. So there's an item that's already on the list there. Anything else?
I think we want to speak to a developer or two who have a track record of having built affordable housing in New York State, and hear what the challenges and what would be ideal for them. That would be, I think, valuable to us.
That would be great. I know of two off the top of my head. One is, I think it's K&R. I think I have the initials right. The other one is Mountco, which has done a lot of development of.
But affordable is a whole other trick, So I would want people who have done, like K&R, great.
Low income housing.
Yeah.
I think they've done both.
Okay.
You're right. Another thing too is to, if we're talking about potentially adding properties, would be to see if a group like the Kingston Housing Authority would be able to take on managing those properties. Because right now they have, for example, Brigham houses, which they don't own, but through a contract with the company that owns Brigham, Kingston Housing Authority manages that property. So, that's another thing we can talk about with Benjamin O'Shea, if we can get him to come speak to us.
One thing I'd like to know,
yep.
if the Kingston Housing Authority has land that's developable adjacent to their existing properties.
Yes, there's the potential through. They also have a not-for-profit housing entity called Stuyvesant Charter, and so that is not supported by the state or the federal government. And at Stuyvesant Charter, there may be some extra room there for another building or so. I'm not sure exactly, how the layout is, or whether the current layout of buildings would have to change. They're in the process of, KHA is in the process of having those Stuyvesant Charter houses completely renovated. So there may be a way to build in there.
Okay.
But I don't think they have other properties of any great size other than that.
Okay.
But that's something to check on. All right.
Good.
Okay. So then, in terms of future meetings, what kind of periodicity? I myself was thinking perhaps once a week, once every other week, at least while the crisis is going on.
I think once every 2 weeks would be good.
Once every 2 weeks. Yes, Michelle.
I think we're trying to see about getting this legislation put together, this proposal, prior to next caucus. And Jeffrey mentioned bringing it back to a special laws and rules. So I'm going to request that we have another meeting within a week, which that would bring us to the last week of April prior, and then in 2 weeks from tonight is our council meeting. I'm requesting a meeting for next Tuesday, the 28th, or the next week.
Yes, Andrea Schott.
Yeah, Andrew Schott here. Just so you all remember, community development is next Tuesday at 6:30. So if you're looking at next week, that this time wouldn't work. Just a reminder.
There's no common council meeting on the 29th, is there?
No, there isn't, because it's the 5th Wednesday, so that's a free night.
All right. So Michelle, what do you envision happening at a second meeting that would be focused directly on this piece of legislation?
Pulling together more information that Rebecca just spoke about and the legality of things. So bringing back to the table.
Okay.
And do you want to bring back forward somebody else to speak about this? You were saying that you wanted to
Yes,
have.
certainly. If we can get some other voices in to discuss its merits or problems, I would be in favor of that. Don, what do you think?
I think that's okay, but I think, Dan will need to be a part of that, right? Michelle, have you worked with Dan on the language? I know you have the language already.
Yes, of course. And I've also been in touch with Peter Frank from Legal Services of the Hudson Valley, explaining to me why the 180 days may not work. It actually may need to be expanded to 1 year, because in real property law, it actually can give a broader range, and we don't want to limit tenants.
So that, I think, would be a big difference in terms of, how landlords are affected. 3 months to 1 year is a whole different ballgame, right?
They would be getting their current rent paid. They'd have to be keeping current.
Just the arrears.
It's the arrears, yes.
Right. Okay.
So whether we're giving them, limiting them to 6 months or real property law says it could be up to a year.
Right. Okay. Okay. So let's have a meeting on maybe Thursday of next week, Rennie. What do you think?
Well, we're talking about Wednesday. Is that okay?
Hold on.
That'll give us a little more time then to whatever information we glean, and maybe even develop a report and get it out to the other members of the at least laws and rules, if not the entire Common Council, because we would be having the 4th would be caucus, and the 5th is the Common Council meeting itself.
Okay, I would just request a little earlier than tonight's if you guys can do that.
6:30?
A little earlier. 5:30?
I won't go any earlier than 6. There's people, people work. I know a lot of people are not at work, but we want to make sure that we've got it in the evening. So I think 6 is as early as we can go.
Okay.
Michelle, what do you think?
Anything is fine with me. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. 6 o'clock.
All right. So 6 o'clock, Wednesday, the 29th. Yes, Michelle.
Is it possible, asking Jeffrey, since Jeffrey's here, is it possible to tentatively schedule a special laws and rules meeting before caucus on the 4th?
I don't see an issue with that. I mean, this would be the only thing on the agenda, so it would depend. If you guys don't come up with anything to vote on, then
We would cancel it then, yes? Yeah. I'm not entirely familiar with canceling, so I'm asking. And okay.
Andrea can
Andrea
respond to it.
This is Andrea Shaw. Just to go over process, of course, we do need the 72 hours notice. So having the meeting on Wednesday could still give us the time to schedule it for Monday. And it does need the permission of the president and the chairperson. So Jeffrey, we could talk about it in the next week. I'll schedule the housing meeting for Wednesday, the 28th at 6 o'clock, you said?
Wednesday is the 29th.
29th, sorry. I'll get that scheduled tomorrow. And then, yeah, as long as there's a 72 hours, which if it's decided on that Wednesday, it still gives us time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
All right, Jeffrey, did you have something else to say?
No, so yeah, so after your meeting, depending on what you guys come up with, then we can schedule the special laws and rules meeting the following day for right before caucus.
On May 4th, which is an infamous day in history. All right. Anything else anybody wants to add? Anything anybody wants to subtract?
I just want to say thank you to everyone.
Thank
I'm sorry,
you.
what, Michelle?
I just want to say thank you to everyone.
Oh, yes. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I know these are difficult times, but I think we've got some exciting directions to go in, and I think we've got some good foundation here for building on. All right, good. Well, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Seconded by Michelle. All right. So great. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Oh, sorry, 8 minutes over our hour. We'll try to do better next time.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thanks.
And thank you, Andrea, for organizing this.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.